Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 2021 Leadership Institute of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs, Incorporated. I'm so excited. I'm a little sad, but I am excited to welcome you all to our fourth and final module for this year's program. We have had a wonderful journey, and I want to thank you all so much for just deciding to join us. We've had a wonderful time. We've had some wonderful information that has been delivered to us. Hopefully, you will share that information, that valuable information, with your friends, your colleagues, anyone that you can scream at the top of your lungs. Take the 2021 Institute. Oh, it's too late. They missed out, but you can share that information with them. Again, we are so excited that you are here tonight. And of course, what better way to wrap it up than to talk about something that is hot, something that is burning, something that's on fire. So, we are tonight going to learn a little bit about hot leadership topics for 2021 as we wrap up this program tonight. So I'm not going to keep us any longer because we are excited for what's to come. So again, the NANBPWC Inc. welcomes you to tonight's program. We are thankful to be able to provide professional and personal development opportunities like this here program, the 2021 Institute, and that is due to our wonderful and dynamic leadership, our 24th National President, Sherelle T. Carper, as well as our National First Vice President, Dr. Latanya Conley. Dr. Conley is instrumental in bringing to not only our association membership, but to our communities as a whole across this country, opportunities like the Leadership Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, our Leadership Institute is one of three amazing programs that our association does offer, again, not only our membership, but also members in our community. I believe that a little birdie might have told me that the Entrepreneurship Institute might be coming up soon. So if there is some truth to that, and I do think there is truth to that, please be on the lookout for information pertaining to that upcoming institute. But tonight, you are here because of the Leadership Institute. The Leadership Institute has been one of our signature institutes for many years, and we are yet again happy that you have made the decision to join us for this year's program. So, there is a chance that some of you might be questioning, why are you here? So you clearly have made a decision to join us. Possibly that's because you wanted to learn about current leadership trends to enhance your brand, or possibly you wanted to simply commit to applying learned strategies to enhance your personal and professional life, or possibly you are an individual who just simply wanted to build your professional network. Whatever your reasoning is, we are glad that you are here, and you definitely will be able to do one of the three, or if not all three, through this program. So, if you have made the right decision, you are here for some hot leadership topics for 2021. Tonight's module is going to do just that. Throughout this process, we are going to this evening wrap up all of the things that you have learned throughout this journey. So be ready, have that paper and pen ready, and we're going to press forward. All right, so let's not hold you up any longer, but you are hearing a voice behind the scenes. You might not see the face, but the voice is that of my own, Cheryl McKay. I am the program assistant for the NANBPWC Inc. Leadership Institute. This has been a wonderful journey, and I want to thank you all for the opportunity to work with so many amazing presenters, so many amazing participants. You all have made this so worthwhile, and I thank you very much. A little bit about myself. I am, of course, you hear that accent, a New Jersey native, but I do currently reside in Greensboro, North Carolina, where I am a high school math teacher. I have been a member of the NANBPWC Inc. for quite some time now, where I have served in various roles. from local club to the national board. But it's not about me. It's about tonight's presenters. Notice that I said not presenter, but presenters. I don't think you all are ready. Tonight's instructors, Delores Alexander and Roslyn Cooley Prayer, have a lot in store for you, but let's talk a little bit about them. Delores Alexander is a native Marylander. I hope I got that right. She retired from the Baltimore City public school system, where she has served in many supervisory roles. Following her first retirement, Delores became a lecturer at Morgan State University and adjunct professor at Johns Hopkins University. During her retirement, Delores was staff developer for Colonial Christian Academy, owner of a professional development company, and a workshop presenter for the National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa Sorority. Delores has served as the state president for Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development, that is ASCD, where she participated in various workshops and represented her state at the national conventions. Delores holds a master's degree in elementary education from Morgan State University. I believe they're the Bears, I believe, right? I hope I have that right. And an advanced degree, CASE, from Johns Hopkins University. We are happy to have Delores with us this evening because she is not only a member, but she is a life member of this wonderful association, the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs Incorporated, excuse me. She has over 25 years of membership in the NANBPWC Inc. She has served in various roles. Most recently, she is the immediate past district governor of the Mid-Atlantic District. All right, Mid-Atlantic District members, let's give each other a shout out in the chat right now. She also has one daughter who is currently serving as our national second vice president over youth. That is Christina Russell. Yes, she is a board member at this moment. Her volunteer tasks also include personnel director at church, state board member of Citizen Review Board for Children, CRBC, and she has many, many other things under her belt, but I know she will want me to definitely mention this, that she is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. All right, our Deltas, let's shout her out in the chat as well. But we also have one more wonderful, beautiful presenter, and that is Roslyn Cooley Prayer. Roslyn has been a member of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs for over 24 years. The amount of experience that these women are bringing to you tonight and to the association is amazing. Okay, we're talking about combined about 50 years of service to this association. So get ready for what's coming your way. Currently, Roslyn serves as the vice governor of the Mid-Atlantic District again. She is a member of the Frederick Club, where she holds her local membership. She has served in various roles, from local to, of course, district, and also served on committees on a national level as well. While serving as the vice president in her club, she led her club to achieving the top program service achievement award for several consecutive years, not one, but several consecutive years. Roslyn is one of the graduates of the 2009 Leadership Institute for our association. So she's bringing definitely a different, hitting things from a different angle. Professionally, Roslyn serves as a program manager of the Home and Community-Based Services for Baltimore County Department of Aging. Professionally, she brings over 33 years of experience in the human services field, working at the New York City Department of Social Services, in addition to New York City Health and Hospital Corporation. Roslyn has been the recipient of several awards, including the 2010 Women of Excellence Award, nominated by FCAC Delta Sigma Theta for work in public service field. She's also received the Frederick County Proclamation for Service on the Frederick County Commission for Women. And she is definitely somebody to watch because she also received the 2000 People to Watch named in Frederick Magazine January 2000 issue. Roslyn's passion to work in human services was sparked by her experiences in her formative years, in which she observed her family who owned and managed a nursing home. It was the evidence of the high professional standards, compassion, and quality customer service that were basic expectations. And these are some of the things that have really kind of allowed her to share her heart, not only professionally, but through service to this association. Something else I want to share with you all, because I'm sure she will want me to. She is a charter member of the Frederick County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And she also holds a BS degree in Human Development from Howard University, the other HU, from Hampton, and a certificate in gerontology. She has also completed graduate coursework in public health. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to keep us much longer. We have a two-part presentation this evening. We are going to begin by receiving some jewels from Delores Alexander. We will then follow with our break, allow you to refresh, and then we're going to close out tonight's session with our second presenter, Roslyn Cooley Prayer. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you for the final time, for the 2021 Leadership Institute, I would simply like to ask everyone, are you up for the challenge? So ladies and gentlemen, please answer that question. Give me a yes in the chat. Give me a yes right now because we want to make sure that we are up for the challenge. Delores, you have the mic.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm so happy to be here this evening to share some of my thoughts. So this evening's presentation will be entitled Conflict Management. It's certainly one of the hot topics for 20 as well as for 2021. So we're going to be looking at that topic tonight. And hopefully by the end of the evening, we will have a new perspective on the entire idea of conflict management as well as conflict resolution. Before we get started, I would like for some of you to write a definition for the word conflict. And then I would like for some of you to be willing to share your definition. So Cheryl, can we take a moment?
Absolutely. So you heard our lovely presenter. She would like to bring some of you on live to help, I believe, define the word conflict. So please, at this moment, throw your answers to that, your response to the definition of conflict or what you believe conflict is in the chat or the Q&A. And we will get a couple of you on live in a second. Do we have any bold participants who are willing to come on live? Anyone who's willing to come on live and engage with our presenter at this moment to tell us what you think conflict is? I know what my answer would be. All right, if you're willing to join us, just simply raise your hand and we'll bring you on live. But while we're waiting for that, I think we have a couple of wonderful, wonderful, wonderful answers. Uh-oh, Threada. All right, Threada, we're looking forward to having you come on live. All right, we're going to bring Threada Green on at this moment. All right, Threada, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
All
Can you
right,
hear
I
me?
think that we
Yes.
absolutely can. We want to know what is
Okay.
conflict to you?
I think conflict can mean many a vast amount of things, but I think when it becomes an issue where there's this tug of war um between two people or more, or maybe sometimes one may have a conflict and the other one doesn't think it's a conflict, but I think when there just seems to be this struggle around how we can come up with a solution to
Mhm.
a problem.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so we have one more. Threada, thank you so much. Let's bring over Ramatu. Ramatu, you are coming on live. All
Um,
right, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. What is
Yeah, okay.
conflict to you?
Yeah, conflict to me is when people disagree on ideas, and I try to reference it to Africa where when decisions are not agreed upon and it leads to war and disability. I mean, yeah, it destabilizes the country, and it creates war. So that's my understanding.
That's deep.
All right, so to our lovely presenter, we have some more comments in the chat. If I can read off some comments regarding conflict. So we have here from Alma Scott Busak. She said a difference of position on a concept or idea. Maria Prado said a disagreement. Ella Good said opposing positions. Barbara Jean Patton said a serious disagreement of a topic or position. Melanie said a struggle between two or more people on ideas and concepts. Okay. Let's see here. We have Sidel, incongruence or disagreement. Glow said opposing views that clash. We have again from Osceola, a disagreement or argument. Marilyn said opposition to something. Leona said a stance or position that is different from someone else. And Sidel, I think, wrapped it up perfectly. She said disharmony.
Yes.
All right, and that is it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so by the end of the evening, we are going to come up with a common definition for the word conflict. Okay, so as you heard earlier, I was previously a teacher, and so we always start off with our objectives. So by the end of the session, participants will be able to define the term conflict, and we're going to be listening for common threads that we're hearing during the presentation. We're going to use problem-solving techniques for resolving conflicts, and we're going to begin to recognize some of the warning signs of conflict. All right, what is conflict? So we can define conflict as a disagreement through which the parties involved perceive a threat to their needs, their interests, and or concern. So it comes from differences in needs, values, and motivation. And so we know that when we think about individuals, conflict also can be as a result of a physical need. It can be an emotional need. It can be a power need. All of those can turn into a conflict. So if you think about, we have to respond to those needs. So when we are responding to those needs, this is when we feel the threat to what we perceive as to what the problem is. Go to the next slide, please. So a conflict is really more than just a mere argument. It's about our perceptions, it's about our feelings, it's about our needs, it's about the way that we see a given situation. So it can have procedural or psychological dimensions to be negotiated. Now, a conflict cannot be resolved by just walking away, because when we come back, the conflict still exists, except when we walk away and we come back, then the conflict has moved to a new level. So conflict are predictable. You really can't go through life about at some point in your life running into a conflict. We have conflicts on the job, we have conflicts in our home, we have conflicts in our clubs. So the key to conflict is how you approach the conflict. So creative problem-solving strategies are essential. So the conflict is not the problem in itself, it is what we do with it that counts. That's so very important. So if we move on to the next slide. So for a leader, skillful conflict handling is an important trait. It is an opportunity to learn and to grow. It allows one to bypass personal differences and to open up possibilities. We can learn from conflicts. It can draw us closer to other people and as we jointly search for solutions. And if we really get a solution to the conflict, then everybody is going to benefit. Now, believe it or not, there are two kinds of conflict. There's good conflict, and then there's bad conflict. And so it might be difficult for you to know if your club has too little conflict or if your club has just enough. So a club often has too little conflict. If every time you have a club meeting, nobody talks, nobody adds anything, people are afraid to take a chance to voice their opinion, that may be too little. Too much would be when we have the person who's in the audience that's always disagreeable, always disagreeing with what is happening, and is never want to be a part of the total group. And it's just enough when we do have people either in the workplace, it could be that you're having a staff meeting, could be that person that is going to ask the question to get clarification. I mean, it could be that club member that's asking a question to get clarification in your classroom. It could be a student that's asking a question. So that type of conflict is not going to lead you to something that's negative. So that would be good conflict, and that would be just enough conflict to make the meeting valuable. Okay, now next slide. So there are levels of conflict. So conflict can be discomfort, it can be an incident, it can be a misunderstanding, it can be a tension, and it can be crisis. So I'm going to give you a couple of situations, and I want you to see if you can match the situation with these levels of conflict. Cheryl, could you put that screen up?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, so we have our first situation launching now, dealing with misinterpretation. The situation is the other person has misinterpreted your feelings. Ladies and gentlemen, please let us know, is this discomfort, just an incident, maybe just a misunderstanding, tension, or crisis? All right, we have about 45% of the vote in. We're going to close out shortly. Let's get those votes in. I stand corrected. We're at about 62%. All right, let's get those votes in. Presenter Alexander, when do you want to close this out?
Okay, I guess we can close out now.
Okay, and our results are on the screen.
That is absolutely correct. So we have 95% saying that this is a misunderstanding, and that's exactly what it is. Thank you. You're very perceptive. Next one.
All right, so our next situation is loading right now. The situation is the way you feel about and regard the other person significantly changes for the worst. That should be the worst. For the worst. All right, again, the situation is the way you feel about and regard the other person significantly changes for the worst. Is this a discomfort, an incident, a misunderstanding, tension, or crisis? All right, we have just about 60% of the vote in at this moment. Get your votes in. All right, we're at about 68%. Oh, we're over 70. Okay, we're going to close in about 5 seconds. Get those votes in. All right, and the results are on the screen.
Oh, that's a smart group. This is wonderful. This is a very, very smart group. That is the correct answer.
Okay, and I'm assuming we're going to go to our next situation. Our next situation, you feel uneasy about the situation, but are not quite sure why. Is this a discomfort, just an incident, a misunderstanding, tension, or crisis? Let's get those votes in. We're at about 55% of the vote. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. We are nearing, we're over 70% of the vote. Let's get those votes in. We're going to close in about 5 seconds. All right, and our results are on the screen. And the majority believes this is discomfort.
That's correct.
All right.
This is a very smart group.
Okay, so we're going to look at, I believe, your final situation. And your final situation says, something occurred between you and someone else that has left you upset, irritated, or with a result you didn't want. Ladies and gentlemen, is this discomfort, just an incident, a misunderstanding, tension, or crisis? Get those votes in. Get those votes in. We're at nearly, we're over 50% of the vote. All right, we're going to close in about 5 seconds. We're at 70% of the vote. Let's get those in. All right, we are closing out and now. Our results are on the screen.
Oh, now this is interesting. It looks like it's between an incident and a crisis. And we also have some that's called a tension. Let's look at those 5 different types of conflict. So the first one, let's leave the screen up for a moment. The first one is discomfort. So when we're having discomfort, it means an uneasiness. It means something is not sitting right with you. Things just don't feel right. So you feel uneasy about a given situation. An incident has clashed several times on the subject. Sharp exchanges occurs without lasting internal reaction. And something occurred between you and someone else that has left you upset. Now, thinking about that, it says something occurred between you and someone else that has left you upset, irritated, or with a result that you didn't want. So, does anybody want to change their answer? So do you still think it's a crisis? I'm sure, can you have somebody to answer about the crisis?
Absolutely. Is there anybody who's bold enough to come on live and answer about crisis in regards to this particular situation? Is there anybody who is willing to engage with our wonderful presenter to discuss possibly why crisis for this situation? Just raise your hand. Just raise your hand in the system and we'll bring you on live. Uh-oh, I think everybody's scared to come on. Ooh. All right, we have Melanie. Melanie is coming from Mid-Atlantic District as well. Melanie, we're going to bring you on live at this moment.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So you want to know why I chose crisis instead of tension?
Yes.
Well, I guess majority of the time when it can be tension, but in a certain situation, it could be crisis because once the tension in person is left and you're upset, it could be a crisis because you never got anything resolved. And especially you have something that's very important and it has a date timestamp. And I feel that if you don't resolve it, this is something that could fester and fester and fester, and it can become from an anthill to a mountain. That's why I use crisis.
Nice response. Someone else?
Is there anybody else who's willing to join us? Yes, we do have a volunteer. All right, Threada, you
Hi.
are with us. Hi.
Okay, so I picked crisis somewhat with what our other sister said, but I also think that it depends on the situation because some levels of discomfort turns into other things. So I think it depends on the actual situation.
Very good. According to research, and we can agree or disagree, crisis is it's a major explosion. Your behavior is affected. Normal functioning becomes difficult. There are extreme gestures, and sometimes it's even as explosive as deciding to leave the club or to leave the job. And I think a lot of what you said is absolutely true because relationships can be harmed also in terms of it being a crisis. Now, according to the document that I was using, and we can agree to disagree, the correct answer is really that it's an incident. But I can see from what you have just said, it could also be a crisis. So thank you very much for participating in this. So if you think about going back, a misunderstanding is the belief that the other person has misinterpreted your feelings or your motives. And then the tension is holding a negative stance towards a person. And of course, if we think about the levels of conflict, we start off with discomfort when we have the uneasiness, and then we can go to the incident, then we go to the misunderstanding, and then we go to the tension and the crisis. The whole idea of these levels is that we don't want to get to level 5. We want to resolve it way before level 5. That's when it becomes a major, major event. And that's when it's very, very hard to have people to calm down and to resolve it. And we know this does happen on the job, and it does sometimes happen in our clubs. So we want to really focus on that. All right, next slide would be. So there are some conflict resolution mistakes to avoid. Now, we know that good communication can improve relationships, trust, and support. But we also know what's important about communication is the difference between, as a parent, we say to our child, I hear you. And then we have to think about as an adult, we say to another person, I am listening to you. Those two things are different. Sometimes when we say, I hear you, you heard them when you really was not listening. And so it's important for that communication for us to be able to listen. We know we try to avoid conflict altogether, but conflict is really, really a part of life, and it happens to each and every one of us. We want it to happen as seldom as possible. One thing we want to avoid is being defensive. We got to be able to approach it with an open mind. And if we're defensive, then it's not going to be resolved, because we're making it something about ourselves, and we make the other person at fault, and we don't want to hear about what they're saying. So when you're being defensive, you deny any wrongdoing, and you work to avoid looking at the possibility that the other person could be contributing to the problem. You deny, when you're being defensive, you deny responsibility that may seem to alleviate the stress in the short term, but you create long-term problems when you don't listen to the other person, and the unresolved conflict continues to grow. So overgeneralization, that is when something happens that you don't like. You blow it up out of proportion by making sweeping generalizations, such as you say things, you always, or you never, and that's when you're always overgeneralizing. All right, being right. It's damaging to decide that there is a right way to look at things and a wrong way to look at things, and that your way of seeing things is right. Don't take it personal if someone has a different opinion. Look for a compromise or agreeing to disagree, and remember that there's not always a right and there's not always a wrong. And sometimes 2 points of view can both be valid. And we should not want to psychoanalyze people or to read minds. So it's difficult to keep in mind that we all come from a unique perspective. We work hard to assume things, and we have to really, really listen to the other person and let them explain what perspective that they are coming from. But the key here is do not try to psychoanalyze people, and forgetting to listen. So don't underestimate the importance of really listening and empathizing with the other person. Playing the blame game. Some people handle conflict by criticizing and blaming the other person for the situation. It's really interesting. I was at a church staff meeting today, and I saw that happen between 2 staff persons. One of the staff person wasn't there, and another staff person began to accuse the absent staff person of the event that had occurred. And so that's a case of playing the blame game. So we need to try to view the conflict as the opportunity to analyze the situation objectively, to assess the needs of both parties, and to come up with a solution that helps both parties. Okay, so trying to win the argument. Sometimes you have the person in your audience, in your club or at your job that always tries to find a way to win the argument. And at the situation that I was in this morning, that was what happened. The person tried to win the argument by saying, well, I'll just do it myself. And the person was not willing to listen to what the conflict was. And making character attacks. That's when we get into the name calling, and we have to make certain that we don't do that. We have to make certain that we remember that nonverbal communication, looking at facial expression, all of those can have people to assume what they think that you're thinking about. And then the last one, stonewalling. That's refusing to talk or listen to the other person. This often causes hard feelings and damages relationships. That's when people leave the room rather than discussing what they're talking about. Of course, when they leave the room, then the conflict festers and it just gets worse. All right, looking at our next slide, conflict resolution skills for healthy relationships. We want to, well, it's hard for you to solve a conflict if you enter into the conflict and you're upset and angry. So the first thing that you need to make certain that you're doing is that you're not letting your feelings get in place of what you're trying to resolve. And you got to really, really, I have to keep saying that, listen. You have to listen to what the other person is saying. And sometimes when you're listening, you want to repeat back what the person said. Did I hear you correctly? Did you say? Don't add, don't subtract. You need to have assertive communication. Everything should be positive. At this point, we want to see the glass half full. And we want to always be in the mode of seeking a solution. And we must realize sometimes, even though we are trying to resolve the conflict, it's just not working. So that means we might need to walk away for the day, come back fresh the next day with a new solution. So by now, you probably have changed your definition of the word conflict. So conflict can be fighting with friends, it can be fighting with club members, it can be fighting with your employees. We often say things that we don't mean and feelings get hurt. So here's some things that you can do to start down to the road to conflict resolution. And the first thing is so very important, calm down. You really cannot solve a conflict if you're walking into a room and you have preconceived notions about what's going to happen, you're already angry. So you need to be able to enter the room calmly. You need to give each other respect. And then sometimes you got to give each other some space and you got to give each other some time. And if we go back, we have the word communicate. Sometimes with a conflict, we need a third person. We need a person that can be called an arbitrator, that can listen to both sides and to help you, the two of you, or maybe more, or to help both sides to hear both sides of the disagreement. So you got to listen well, and you got to listen intently with an open mind. A little bit more about myself. I'm a certified arbitrator, and my specialty is in the automobile field. So I arbitrate cases between the automobile company and the consumer. And one of the things that they always talk about is that I have to be able to listen to both sides, and I have to be able to listen with an open mind. Oftentimes when you purchase something, you'll see in small print that if there's a disagreement that you need to either go to mediation or to arbitration, you need to read that fine print, because that's really the person that's going to solve that conflict or that disagreement for you. So again, you need to choose your words wisely, and you got to leave out the word but. So when someone says something, you can't say, I heard you, but, because that negates everything that was said before the but. So you got to leave that word out. And sometimes you just have to let it go. And sometimes if it's not monumental, you have to agree to disagree. So I guess it depends on what level the crisis is. If it's at a high level, then you might not be able to agree to disagree. You might have to resolve whatever the conflict is. Now, some tips for managing conflict, tension, and anger. Now, what you're going to see is a lot of the words that's been repeated, such as, it says to share negative emotions only in person or on the phone. That is very, very important. You should not share your negative emotion on email. You should not share your negative emotion in public, because once you let it out, you can't bring it back. So what you want to try to do, if you're sharing your negative emotions, to try to do it in person. And you talk to that person one-on-one. because when it's written down, then the people go back and they read it later and they just become angry. So hopefully you remember that. You want to pepper your responses with the phrase, I understand. So when a person is saying something to you, you want to say, I understand. That's really important. Take notice when you feel threatened by what someone is saying to you. So if you feel threatened, you might want to count to 10 before you respond. And you got to practice making requests of others when you're angry. So you need to practice that before you are in that person's company. Because when you're making requests of people when you're angry, it often does not come out the correct way. You want to take responsibilities for your feelings, and you want to avoid blaming others. Now, something that I find is very important, and it says to try repeating the exact words that someone is saying to you, because sometimes it's the way it's said. If the person puts expression on a certain part of the sentence, you may take it the wrong way, and you may disagree with them completely. So you want to try to repeat the exact words that someone is saying to you to make sure you have a good understanding. You want to either you need to listen or have someone to listen to the two sides of the conflict that you are in, as if you were the mediator or the counselor. As I said earlier, listening and hearing are not the same things. It's so very important to listen. Make a decision to speak with decorum whenever you are angry or frustrated. And one of the things you want to remember when you're angry, do not raise your voice. Raising the voice is just something that's really, truly negative. And it's hard to get the person to come around to what you're saying if you're screaming and hollering. And sometimes you need to wait a few days to cool down emotionally when the situation makes you feel wild with intense feelings, such as rage. You don't want to ever try to solve a conflict when you're in that sense. So calming down is going to be very important, that you come back another day. But I want to say what's important, that oftentimes when the conflict really cannot be resolved, you might want to have a third person to listen. It's important for that third person to have an open mind, and that third person can actually listen to what you're saying. And sometimes what I've seen work is a third person can record what you're saying. And when you play it back for the person is really shocked that they said things with such intent, that they said things with certain adjectives, and sometimes playing it back is a mind opener. Then you didn't really mean what you said, but you said it at that time. So that's very important. So waiting those few days to calm down emotionally is probably very important. And then you can come back and and sometimes when you come back, you have to agree to disagree because you just can't get on the same page. And last but not least, it says here to create a backup plan. Now, sometimes you can do this and sometimes you cannot. So before you go into a situation that you think is going to be confrontational, maybe you should have a plan in place of what you can do. Knowing when you go into that situation, the plan might not work, but if you have a plan, at least you have an idea of what you can do and what you can say in a given situation. Now, you want to always evaluate your own feelings. You need to do that in order to have a peaceful resolution. It's important, as I keep saying, you must be calm. You can't be angry. You have to be open-minded to what you're going to say. Even though it says to diffuse the other person's anger, sometimes the two individuals that are in the conflict can't diffuse the other person's anger. You may have to have a third person to do that. And oftentimes, if the person is angry, that is not the time that you can settle the conflict. And the reason why you can't settle the conflict is because the person who's angry is not listening to what you are saying. And it's very, very important if the person is angry that you're saying things that are positive and not things that's gonna make the person even angrier. So you need to find out what the other person wants or needs to feel better. You can do that by having an open conversation. And sometimes you need to brainstorm possible solution to the problem together. And again, that would happen when you are calm. And when you do that, you'll be able to resolve your conflict in a very, very peaceful way. Now, think about what we've said. Do you think that your definition of conflict has changed? Does anybody want to share their changed definition?
Ladies and gentlemen, do we have anybody who is willing to come back on and let us know if you have changed your position on conflict? And I see we do have a hand raised. Joan, are you willing to come on and share? All right, we're going to bring Joan on.
Thank you.
All right, Siobhan, we're going to bring you on as well. All right, Siobhan, you should be able to speak at this moment. All right, we also have Geraldine who is willing to share as well.
Good.
Ladies, just unmute your mics. All right, just unmute your mics and just engage with our lovely presenter. All right, Geraldine, welcome. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I just came from another meeting all day, so but I'm enjoying this. This is really good, and I've been on all 4 of the modules. But what I wanted to ask, dealing, not changing, what I think conflict is, but where you said I understand, that hit me, because suppose I don't understand. Maybe I need to make them make me understand, or let them say, let me understand, or see if I can understand, rather than say I understand and I don't.
Well, you can have them to repeat what they just said.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, that when I'm, rather than me say I understand, I say to them, well, make me understand, let me hear this again,
Okay.
and then I work with it that way.
Well, that makes sense.
So, Delores, while we're waiting for Siobhan to come on live, we do have a question which I think is extremely timely. This is from Renee Morgan, and she would like to, well, she's stating, during these times of racial conflict, can you address the issue of microaggressions and how resolution can be attained? So again, during these times of racial conflict, can you address the issue of microaggressions and how resolution can be attained?
Well, I think as we were talking about perceived threats and perceptions, it's the individual who has needs and perceptions, and the perception of the individual is incorrect. And so I think everything still goes back to having open communication. If somehow you can get the 2 parties or the 2 groups to be able to have an open dialogue and to be able to talk, because I think it's really because people don't understand each other. And so they're going by previous thoughts, previous conceptions of either people or a group of people, and they use that instead of having an open dialogue and actually talking. and looking at the situation at the way it is now in 2021. And sometimes they're using historical thoughts. They're using that. But I think everything to me goes back to having open communication.
All right, and I think that was all for the questions. Siobhan, are you with us now?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm having a hard time unmuting. It kept going back. I just want to say, sometimes we get to let the conflict comes, it drags on before we address it. And I think that's the problem we have as Black women in Black organizations, is that we don't address the conflict when it first happens. When we first see the tension between two people or a group of people, and we don't address it. For some reason, we let it just drag on and drag on, and we just keep kicking the road. And I do, we would address it later on, it might get as bad, but I realized being in many of Black organizations, period, that majority of the time is something that we just don't want to address. So that's got, to me, it's hard to it's hard for me to say that we're gonna have conflict resolution due to the fact we don't do it until it's too late. And well, not too late. I'm not gonna say too late, but it's almost beyond preparing. You can't.
I think in that case, it has gotten into a crisis situation. It started off maybe something small and it just keeps building and building, like you say, and we don't resolve it at the first level.
Yes, but I think that's what we have the problem with. I mean, I think that majority of times we don't address it early enough, and we don't treat it as, okay, maybe to be saying, we don't treat it as a conflict. We think that, oh, I'm just not gonna worry about it, or I think it's gonna go away. Some think it's gonna go away.
I think
Also,
you and I are saying the same thing. It's like we need to, when we first see it happening, we got to be able to recognize it, right? Recognize it as a problem. And then once you recognize it as a problem, you got to be able to begin to think about a solution. And we can't just ignore it because it just festers and gets worse. Then it's a big blow up. And then it's harder to resolve. So I think if we look at each given situation and try to attack it when it's small, it's a little bit easier to resolve than it is when we let it get to something big. And when it gets to be something big, that might be the time you need a third person to be able to mediate.
Well, do you think it's good to get a third person to mediate when it's almost in crisis mode? I just want your opinion on that.
If it's almost in crisis mode?
Yes, ma'am.
I would say yes, because sometimes you get to crisis mode, you're just having a difficult time resolving it, but you got to make certain that whoever that third person is, that person is skilled in solving conflict, because that person could make it worse. So I think at that point in time, you could get a trained or certified arbitrator to be able to come in to listen to both sides and to come up with, but you got to agree to arbitration, that when whatever the arbitrator comes up with, it might not be what you want on your side, but what the arbitrator is going to do is come up with a viable solution.
Okay.
All right, presenter Delores, thank you so much, Siobhan. And I just want to kind of gauge the temperature of our presenters. So we were scheduled to take a break at this moment. We do have a couple of questions that are coming in hot like fire, hot topics. So we can hold off, take our break and hold off on the questions. I'm gonna just take your lead. Delores, I'm gonna take your lead.
Okay, do you want me to bring it to conclusion or?
We can, and then we can come back to this during our final Q&A session at the end. So if those of you who have questions, if you can just hold them, we're gonna leave them there. I see them, keep them coming in the Q&A, keep them coming in the chat.
Wonderful.
Yes. Oh, conflict resolution is big, especially during this time.
Yeah.
With
So,
COVID and all the things that are
yes,
happening.
absolutely. So
Mhm.
if you think about it, resolving conflict. So conflict will occur because life is without conflict. Internal conflict is another area that we must deal with. Sometimes the conflict is within us instead of between the two people. And so we can choose to let conflict polish our character, or we can allow it to make us angry at life. We can be humble and thankful and learn from it, or be critical or arrogant. The attitude you choose will directly affect your outcome. Question for you: do you embrace conflict, brace yourself for conflict, or try to avoid conflict? Just think about that. That's a thought question. Oh, these
All
are
right.
wonderful questions.
Wonderful questions.
Yes.
So you do have a thought question that was posed to you. So what we're going to do at this moment, we're going to let you ponder on that.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Delores, do you want to represent that to them so they can think about it during the break?
Okay, so do you embrace conflict, brace yourself for conflict, or try to avoid conflict? And the attitude that you choose will directly affect your outcome.
All right. So ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a quick break. Let's say about 4 minutes, allow you a little time to refresh yourselves and just relax and take in all that you have learned about conflict. Okay, we want to make sure that we operate properly, especially when it comes to resolving conflict. So think about that, and we'll be back with you in about 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Enjoy the break. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone so much for your wonderful questions. Keep them coming. Our presenter, Delores Alexander, is working hard behind the scenes. She is answering some of those questions that you all have. We know that conflict resolution is very important, especially in this day and age. So hopefully we might have a few moments at the end to readdress any lingering questions that we might have regarding that topic. But ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to hold you up much longer because we have another wonderful presenter coming to you in a moment. Roslyn Cooley Prayer is going to wrap us up with our hot topics in leadership for 2021. Roslyn, you have the mic. All right, Roslyn, we can't seem to hear you. Let's try to get that fixed. And Bear with us. We'll be back in a second. Right.
Okay, great. Great. Well, good evening, everyone. It is truly an honor and pleasure to be with you this evening. And I am going to begin my presentation today. We're going to be talking about transformational leadership on the road to success in 2021.
And ladies and gentlemen, while we're waiting to get our presentation going, just want to remind you, please leave those questions and comments for both of our presenters in the chat and the Q&A, and we will make sure that we have those answered either live or behind the scenes. All right, thank you so much. And here we are with Transformational Leadership on the road to success in 2021.
Thank you. So today's, this evening's objectives regarding this topic, we want to take a look at assessing our basic leadership skills and also understanding various leadership styles. We also would like to take a moment to focus on the importance of generational leadership. What is transformational leadership? It is an overarching leadership concept which takes into account not only the organization's vision, but also many other key factors. For example, that person should be looking at their vision, their long-term goals, how to manage effectively, seeking results-oriented success, also encouraging everyone that's a part of your organization or your club to really buy into your goals and your mission. And also, it's important as a transformational leader to really embrace all of the viewpoints while you're recognizing the importance of inclusivity and diversity within your organization. So let's start with the basics. Ladies and gentlemen also, what's in your leadership bag? What do you have? I'm going to suggest, and according to Indeed.com, effective interpersonal communications, good active listening skills, the ability to set goals, the ability to build relationships and to negotiate, and the ability to resolve conflicts, which we've just heard a lot about. The ability to motivate, to get everyone excited, and the ability to make decisions. So when you're talking about that verbal and that written expression, you want to be warm and inviting and friendly in your tone. Be honest and open in your communication. Be open-minded and flexible, clear and concise. When you are a manager or leader, it's important not to give confusing messages. Be concise. And also offer always positive feedback and constructive feedback as well. And this is something I think we all should be very careful of. Make sure you select the best medium for communication. There are some things that are appropriate via email and others that may require a direct telephone call or a direct contact, maybe even in person once we get over COVID. And then also for nonverbal expressions, keep in mind that oftentimes people can tell how you're feeling based on some of the things that they see. If you're not paying attention with your eye contact, they may think that you really are not listening to them. So your eye contact is important, your posture is important, your facial expression, and your hand gestures. Always remember to show, RESPECT, respect. When you're talking to someone or you're listening to them, you might want to say, give their name so that they know that you are really being attentive. Show your attentiveness through eye contact, convey respect both verbally and also in email. Listen carefully to what's being shared and be empathetic. Even though, and we talked a little bit about this just a few minutes ago when we were talking about conflict resolution, but even though you may disagree, it's important to express the views of others, showing that you care for them and you want to help to understand what they are trying to tell you and explain what exactly is going on, to hear their challenges and their concerns. You also want to make sure that you're able to set goals. So whether it's for your club, whether it's for your business, you want to have goals. And you want to make sure that you are setting up goals that everyone is a part of helping to build a path to success. So you want to establish your SMART goals, making sure, and I'm sure many of you have already heard this, and remember, these are some of the basics. So in your SMART goals, you want to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And so please make certain that you think about that as you establish your goals. And as a vice governor, I'm going to say your program goals. Diplomacy and negotiation skills. Please make certain that you consider that it's so important that everyone understands your mission. You know, what organization are you representing? Can you tell me about their mission? What do you stand for? It's important that not only you, but every member, every person on the team understands what those core values are. Also, know who you're serving, know your audience, know your customers, and build a relationship with others outside of your organization, your community partners. Also, know your stakeholders, know who's a part of helping to make this possible. Conflict resolution. We already talked a lot about it, so just briefly, remember, conflict is inevitable. And I think past governor just mentioned that sometimes we have to be very careful about conflict. It can be good and it can be bad. It's just which way you look at it. And take a proactive stance to assist with addressing a concern when it arises. Don't let it fester. And I heard one of the comments earlier that sometimes in our organizations, we allow the problems to fester. We just let them sit, or we ignore, pretend we don't see them because it's a conflict, so we're going to shy away. But sometimes your sister, sometimes your colleague may need someone to support them and recognize there is a problem here. Let's talk about it. How can we address this concern? And always remember the importance of constructive criticism. Your motivation skills, uplift your club, your team morale, be the cheerleader, be the one that's really encouraging your members to take an active role, express the value of each member in their efforts, from the small to the large achievements. Just make sure that you constantly do that and encourage your team participation so that everyone can take part in the success once you achieve your goals. When it comes to decision making, that's really key for a leader. So you want to make sure that you're responding promptly, that helps others to see you in the light of someone that they can have confidence in, that when an issue arises, you are going to try to address it. And also collect all the information you need before you make the decision. Make sure you understand the pros and the cons, the benefits and the risks. Make sure you have all your information before making that decision. Also, trust your instincts and remember, if you're in this role, you're a leader and you're in this role for a reason. You have some experiences. So also relying on your experiences. But please don't feel that you cannot seek assistance. As a leader, oftentimes, depending on your role, you can almost feel like you're alone if you don't have support around you. So I'm going to say, make sure you have that supportive network around you so that if you do need assistance, you can seek assistance. At this time, since it's Black History Month, I thought I would share a little bit of a story of a historic transformational leader, Barbara Rose John. So please bear with me as I begin to share.
And the United States Supreme Court declares segregation on interstate buses and trains.
Can you hear?
We can hear, we can't see it, but we definitely can hear. We hear it clearly.
You can't see?
We can't see it, but we can hear it.
Okay, so hold on one second. Can I?
Okay.
I'm gonna. Okay.
Buses and trains on the Constitution.
How's that?
Perfect.
Time has finally come to strike directly at segregation. Marshall looks for Black families in a few local communities courageous enough to sue for integrated schools in the federal courts. In 1951, the NAACP unexpectedly discovers one of those communities in Farmville, Virginia, deep in the tobacco-growing region of Prince Edward County. Black community in Farm, Virginia in the 1950s, in the late 40s, was an ambitious community. And it seemed that, in fact, the public school system was what I refer to as a great engine. Black public schools were a great engine of achievement and ambition. I credit where I am today to what I got in high school. I didn't need an integrated education. I didn't need an integrated student body to get a good education. Our teachers, they were on us all the time. It wasn't about sitting beside a given person. It was about a quality education, and we could no longer get the quality education we needed in this building because we had grown out of the building.
We never saw the white schools inside. I had no idea what the high school was like. And when I walked over there, and it still blows my mind, they had like an atrium instead of school. We could walk out of the cafeteria and kind of sit in the garden and eat. We didn't even have a cafeteria, let alone where you could go after you got your food. But I just couldn't believe that this is what they were building. And I'm sitting up there with an umbrella up on rainy days so the ink wouldn't run on my paper.
It's just really difficult to kind of know how to think about yourself when you can't go to the public school because you're not good enough. You can't get gained because you're not good enough. It's kind of psychic harm. And there's a lot of real economic harms and physical harms, but psychic harm that really makes you begin to disrespect yourself.
We wanted so much here and had so little. And we had talents and abilities here that weren't really being realized. And I thought that was a tragic scene. And that's basically what motivated me to want to see some change take place here.
In 1951, Father Johns, a 16-year-old junior and niece of activist Reverend Vernon Johns, decides to organize a student strike at the Robert Russell Moulton High School.
there was, and this year, I just felt because your moment, Barbara had decided, she and the student leaders had decided that this is what they were going to do. They were going to get a representative from each grade and have that person be responsible for telling the other students and she emphasized that he was a secret.
Mr. Jones was principal. We had to get him off campus because we knew Jones was on campus. There was no way that was going to be respected. Strong leader, very highly respected. So we went home and we pretended we were busy.
Presenter Prayer, is it possible to increase the volume on the video?
Services and one of us saw him, and that person called the other two. Well, he's gone, and we all came. Three of us came back.
I'm trying.
After the assembly, Barbara came in and walked up on the stage, and I remember saying to myself, "What
Oh, sorry.
is going on? Why is she up there?"
Or possibly your volume on your computer? Just bring it all the way up.
Yeah, I have it on there.
The conditions
Can you
were
hear it now?
very bad
Better?
at the school, and she needed everyone's cooperation, and she realized this was a surprise, but they had to keep it that way so that it wouldn't leak, and that.
I think that's an improvement. Thank you.
Barbara started out, of course, and then we just talked and told them strike the school, and it became a charity session. What do you want to do? Want to strike? Where do you want to strike? Today, and all this. So it really was a rally situation.
I remember sitting in my seat and sort of cowering down because I couldn't believe it, first of all. First reaction I had was fear. I thought, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to us now?
Everyone, a lot of people were scared. Some of Barbara's closest friends were scared to death for her. They said, why did you do that? She said, we have to make a change. And I mean, right now, Barbara was very dynamic, but she wasn't quiet.
The students marched down the street to the superintendent's office. We come in the office. Poor secretary almost had a heart attack. So she goes, tells Mr. McElwain that these students are here. So we go in. He promised he was going to rain down the wrath of God on all of us for what we were doing. Our parents were going to lose their jobs.
He said, you're upstart. And, you need to go ahead back to school before all your parents are in jail. And this is what frightened us when he said our parents were going to jail. And a member of my family said, how big is the power of jail? And that was it. From that point on, no stopping.
Initial reaction was to cut off the economic livelihood of folk, and that, of course, was going to bring them in line. And Mr. Jones, the principal, was fired. Mama was fired. Daddy was fired. Our cross was burned in our yard after the school strike, and my parents sent Barbara to Montgomery, Alabama, to live with my Uncle Vernon because they were afraid for her life, because they had received threats.
Responding to the crisis, NAACP lawyers come to Farmville to assess the resolve of the community.
It was so fun watching Jackie Robinson and Evansville. It was the most beautiful sight I've ever seen. And they came in there and they were really and truly defiant. They were astounded to find that these people who had been dormant and quiet for so long were ready to back their children. Then, of course, Spotswood Robinson spoke out. And he said, if you're really ready to back them, then you have to sign this petition. And that's what we found out, how we can separate the wheat from the chaff. And the black community, because something black didn't sign. The NAACP takes up the students' cause, adding the Farmville case to a series of suits that will take the Russo Moulton Students' Challenge to Jim Crow all the way to the United States Supreme Court. In a case known as Brown versus the Board of Education, the Supreme Court upheld the Farmville students' claim for better schools. Speaking for the unanimous court, Chief Justice Earl Warren declared, in the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place.
Okay, I hope that everyone had.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brian Paris, and I have
I'm sorry, let me
question
just
for
stop this
anyone with
for a
arthritis.
second.
Which one of these foods contains a protein?
And presenter prayer, I'd just like to tell you, everyone was really enjoying that. That was amazing. Some of the comments in the chat, definitely appreciated that. So we appreciate you for sharing that with us.
Great, great. I am honored, and I guess I have a little bit of a piece of the story as I'm a native of Virginia, and this is definitely like a distant cousin to me. So, but let's talk about what we just saw, because in that movie, the 16-year-old girl had the vision. She realized that there was a problem with the school in which they resided in. And there were some leadership qualities that we may have seen there. So I'm wondering if in the chat, if people could note, what are some of the leadership qualities that you may have seen either from Barbara or other leaders within the story? And if someone would like to discuss, it's fine.
And we do have a comment. We have Fearless in the chat.
Yes.
Organizing. Barbara shared Fearless. Brenda, organizing. Our National First Vice President, Dr. Conley, said to stand up for right. Barbara Jean said willing to take a risk. Our National President said determination. Allison Corby said well thought out vision. And that's all we have for now.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Stephanie also said insight.
Yeah, insight. So let's talk a little bit about leadership styles. I think we should aim, if we're going to be transformational, to be the leader that we would want to follow. So let's look at that. So there are effective leaders and ineffective leaders. And as you can imagine, that effective leader, they maintain order, they are able to increase productivity, they're able to boost the morale of their team, of their club, they're consistent, they have good camaraderie with the members of their team or their club, they're engaging, and they're likely to have possibly a lower turnover rate. I mean, you can't always control who comes and goes, but a more effective leader is likely to have more people to follow. And when we think about the Barbara John story, there were 400 students in that auditorium on the day that they walked out of that school. 400. So for her to have had to first identify the issue, and then go to her peers in her school, actually, that she felt were also good leaders, to plot this plan so that they could carry out the strike. And I have to tell you that her sister, Joan Cobbs, did not know about the plan. Barbara was the oldest, so she was taking care of her younger sibling. And her sister, who was in the same school with her, was sitting in the auditorium that day, and she was thinking, oh my goodness, what is she doing? So think about the effective leadership And ineffective leadership, well, that's just the opposite. You know, things are chaotic, low morale, low productivity, high absenteeism, lack of participation, and high turnover rates. Also, just taking a look at situational leadership, Paul Hershey and Kim Blanchard, they came up with this concept, and there's a book that they put out that's very popular, Management of Organizational Behavior. The one thing I want you to remember about a situational leader is that they are able to adapt, because they look at what the situation is, the skills and abilities of their team members, and they are able to adapt. They're able to decide, well, this person needs a little bit more support with carrying out this task. This person needs just a little more coaching. This one, I can just delegate the task and they can carry it out. And this person, I actually need to give guidance. I need to direct a little more. So remember, a situational leadership style, that person is able to adapt. They are not just going to use one style all the time. They are able to adapt to the situation and based on who they have in their team and in their club. We all have various skill sets, so it's really important to be able to encompass some of those skills. Situation leaders are able to adapt as necessary, delegating while allowing other members to accept responsibility, empowering members to take a key role in decision-making, encouraging engagement amongst the members, and providing clear and concise directions. I do believe that Barbara Johns was a situational leader. And the one thing I wanted to add, we talked about one more thing to talk about today, which was embracing generational differences. And I saw this beautiful picture with all of the generations and 5 generations of great. So I think it's important, whether it's in your club, whether it's in your business, that you're able to embrace generational differences. Now, according to the Center for Generational Kinetics, there are 5 generations that can be found as active participants in America's economy today. And they come up with those dates. They look at trends in parenting and technology, economics, and that's how they come up with the generation. So while this is currently, however, the first time that all 5 of those generations can be working at the same place at the same time. So it's important that involvement and communication amongst all generations are actively taking place within your organization. This is critical to the growth of your business, your clubs, your organizations, and I know I'm preaching to the choir because we all know this. While there's no right or wrong leadership style, it's imperative for your leaders in the organization to be able to communicate effectively within and across generations. So look at those generation styles. And this slide may not be the best because the font is a little small. I'm hoping you can see it. But of course, we have the silent generation. That would be from 1929 to 1945. And then we have the boomer generation. Well, let's talk about the silent generation. You know, they're respectful to authority. They're very loyal, hardworking, detail-oriented, focused. You know that this is the mature person within a family with wisdom. Your boomer generation, that's 1946 to 64, work to live philosophy, redefining retirement, conservative, dedicated, experienced, and knowledgeable. And your Gen X, 65 to 80, hardworking and tech literate. So you need to make sure in your club, you need to have Gen Xers in your club. Focus on work-life balance. They like flexible telecommuting And job sharing, boy, they must have known with COVID in store, we've learned to appreciate the perspective of the Gen X generation because of that. And job sharing independent, but they're willing to work with others and they are adaptable and they're willing to change the status quo. And then you have your Gen Y millennials, that's 1981 to 92. They're smart. They can easily get bored. So if you have any of them in your club or in your organization, you need to keep them active, give them something to do. They're eager to move up, short-term focus, they're individualistic, they're challenging of authority. They may ask you, and I see this within my team that I manage, they may stop and say, so now why do we have to do that? Whereas my staff that may fall in the boomer generation, if we say this is the plan and this is what we're going to do, typically that person says, okay, and they're going to embrace it and we're going to move forward. However, my staff that fall in that Gen Y millennial generation, they're going to say, no, why do we need to do that? Now, once you explain it, they can buy into it. But they're also tech savvy and tenacious and team oriented. And then you have Gen Z. So that's 93 to the present. They're self-directed. They're capable of processing information quickly. A microwave generation, 1, 2, 3. They're smart, less likely to be a team-oriented, very independent-minded. They are thinking, you know, I got this, I can do it. Able to process large amounts of information. They're creative and tech-oriented. So please keep that in mind. So, and now for the poll.
All right. We are going to launch a poll. This has got me worried. I'm not sure if I can answer this. However, ladies and gentlemen, get ready to cast your vote. Which generations can be found in today's workforce? You can select more than one option. All right, you can definitely select more than one option. All right, let's get those votes in. We have about 57, 59, 63% of the vote. Again, let me remind you, you can select more than one option. Again, which generations can be found in today's workforce? We have about 80% of the vote. Presenter, Prayer, do you want to close it out?
Yes, you can. Thank you.
Okay, our results are on the screen.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, all of the above, all of the above. For those who answered all of the above, 73%. All of these generations can be in the same workforce at the same time, working together, each one having a different style. So it's important to understand where they're coming from or what their mindset may be, so that when you give them a task and they respond in a certain way, you might have a better understanding. And maybe you might need to approach working with that person in a different way. Thank you. So at this time, I'd like for us to engage in a generational leadership discussion. At this point, let's think of ourselves as all transformational leaders. We've got our bag, our leadership bag filled with all of those basic skills we talked about. You're also adaptable, confident about your leadership style. However, you realize that your generational leadership is missing from your organizational structure. What are some of the things that you would do to ensure that generational leadership is included?
Wow, that's an interesting one there for me even. So at this point, you have been posed a question. So I'm assuming, presenter Prayer, do you want to have maybe some individuals come on and engage with you?
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
please.
Okay, so what are some of the things that you would do to ensure that generational leadership is included? Are there any bold participants who are willing to come on and engage? Okay, we have Cami who is willing to join us. And while we're bringing Cami over, Marilyn has said, understand the age groups and understand their need to be led appropriately. Oh, I like that.
Mhm.
All right, Cami, if you could just unmute yourself, and there you go. Good evening, Cami.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, doing great. Just loving these sessions. I think that with everything going on recently, I would definitely make sure I have the Generation Z as somewhere in there on technology. Because even though I'm a boomer, I still think I work better with the silent and the Generation X. I don't know why, but the millennials can, I like them because you can say, hey, do this and they'll do it. But we really need all of them mixed together, especially with the technology and stuff. It's like the kids are born with technology on the brain already. You know, I see like 2-year-olds walking around with computers, you know, and they're just functioning it. And Lord, it took me forever just to figure out how to turn some of them on. But if we can have at least one in a leadership role and recognize now that we see what the generations are, we can pretty much, as we're trying to get them to be in, you know, to help the organizations out, we can figure out now, okay, well, this generation is good for this. So maybe I can appoint that person to work on this program or something like that. But that's basically how I feel that, I mean, even the silent ones can help. I mean, a silent person can be a good secretary because they're listening and they're writing down, you know, everything for you. And then they can give it maybe to the Y or whatever to make it sound better or whatever, you know? So, I mean, it's just a conglomerate of all of it. I'm just excited to try to figure out how to put all of them together to make us more successful.
Exactly, exactly.
And we have a couple more individuals who would like to come over and share their thoughts. Leona and Allison, we're going to bring you both on. All right, Leona, good evening. Welcome. Allison, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, you can go ahead and talk, share your thoughts.
Good evening, this is Leona. Can you hear me okay? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I agree with what was just said. I do, it says, what are some of the things that you would do to ensure generational leadership is included? One thing I would do, I would recommend is, even though these, I don't know if their characteristics and attributes in the workplace are important, don't assume that because someone belongs to either one of these groups based on their age or based on their age, don't assume that someone doesn't know certain things, won't embrace certain ideas based on their generation, because there are some older people, and I'm 53. So when I say older, I'm Generation X. I don't want to assume that just because someone's from a particular group, they won't embrace technology, or someone, I don't want to put people in a box. So I guess one thing I wouldn't do is try and generalize and box people in, because people have different skills and talents and gifts. And I think if you ask for volunteers for something, rather than assuming someone may be good for something, it may, because otherwise you're going to create conflict if you try and put someone where they don't really belong based on this characteristics. But it is good to keep it in mind. Don't let it be your measure or your standard. I guess that's what I want to say.
Absolutely. I think that your point is so well taken. So yes, and oftentimes, I mean, we never want to generalize about the category you think someone, or you're assuming someone belongs in, and that we can't work together. My thinking is that we can all work together. It does help to know historically a little bit about a person and what they may like and how we can work together. But you really shouldn't keep anyone in a box. I really agree with that comment. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
All right, Allison, would you like to share?
Yes, I agree with Leona that you should not overgeneralize. I think what Leona was hinting at is you should look at your members' skills, or your coworkers' skills. Assess them, ask them what their interests are. You may have a Gen Xer. I'm literally in the first year of Gen X, 55. And there are individuals in my generation who are terrified of technology, but there are individuals, I happen to be my club's tech person, and I taught myself how to do Instagram. Some of us are not necessarily scared. And I've discovered, I've met millennials who hate technology. So you have to find common interest, skill level, and I think you need to be flexible as a leader when you're trying to organize, your generational leadership, and see what people's time is. In 6 months, someone may be able to be available and be part of that leadership, or they may not be right now. So you can't assume also availability.
Right. I think to that point, for example, if you have, I know I have quite a few generations on my staff, but I have someone that's a young mom, for example, and we're in midst of COVID, and that person is working from home. That young mom is going to college, as well as interning, as well as working and raising a child and working from home. And so her needs and her skills, as a leader, you need to know what that person's needs are and also recognize their skills and abilities. So you have to look at the situation. So I think the ability to adapt and be flexible, that's paramount. It's truly paramount, especially when you think about the situational leadership component. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Dr. Stephanie Giles-Merrick, who would like to come on and join us. Again, thank you, Allison. All right, Dr. Merrick, just unmute yourself. All right.
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah, that is an excellent a question that you brought up. And what I was just thinking, just working in a multi-generational team, we have to also worry about our communication. We got to effectively communicate. And, we have those who like the standard emails. And then I know on my team, I have a lot of Z, Y, and they love to chat with me. And so they create their own chat rooms for they to ask quick questions. And also when you want to do a professional email, a business email, you know how they want to do it, right? Simple, straight to the point. So depends on who our audience is. We need to know if we need to bullet point it. We need to know if we need it long-winded. We need to know exactly so that we can effectively communicate for the whole team. So everyone can be on the same point. We have to really be mindful of who we're talking to at that point in time to be effective communicators with one another.
Yes,
So
I agree.
And we do have some additional comments in the chat. Maria Prado mentioned, be open-minded when hiring. Everyone is experienced and knowledgeable in some area. I think that's a great point. Alexi said to include everyone at the table, acknowledge the generational differences and their positive traits, then state that you respect everyone's input. And our national president said, this is another example of knowing your audience. You have to be able to fit the appropriate skill sets of members to the individual task. I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
And Brenda mentioned, she says she totally agrees with all of the generations working together. They all add value. And Stephanie also put a comment in, working in a multi-generational team, we have to make sure we are effectively communicating where they are. For example, some team members may like email, others may want to have a group meet chat. And then I love this one because I'm in love with YouTube. Our National First Vice President made a great point, and this is key. So she said, when in doubt about any topic, go to YouTube or Google the subject matter. And she's just speaking from her experience that she has looked at many videos to learn how to effectively run a virtual meeting. So that, for me, I love that comment because that actually allows us to kind of merge or close the gap. Maybe there's something that one generation is extremely knowledgeable about, and maybe somebody who's in another age group might not have a clue, but YouTube can help to bring everybody to the same playing field. And Leona had a final comment. We have actually one more in the Q&A. There are also varying learning styles within generations, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic.
True.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. And Roslyn, we have one more from Ramatu, and she said, assign them some leadership roles within their fields.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I thank you all for your comments because we know within our organization and with any business that it's so important to respect one another, respect our skill sets, and to really understand who we're working with, and to be flexible and adaptable. It's so important. Those effective communication skills, those basic things that we've learned and we've heard about it before, but it really is important, and it's important across the generation. So thank you, and I hope that each of you have benefited from this portion of the presentation on transformational leadership.
Thank you so very much. We are so doubly, appreciative and blessed to have had not only one, but two presenters this evening. Again, thank you. Definitely a wonderful way to end with some hot topics in leadership for 2021. So we are going to ask our lovely presenters if they could just give us about 30 more seconds of their time. We don't want to keep everyone much longer. Ladies and gentlemen, as we close out, I do want to thank everyone for staying with us. We're just going to be just a couple more minutes. We just want to have our presenters, and we can start with Roslyn. Roslyn, if you can, and I'll bring both you and Delores on. If you all can think about a seed of wisdom that you want everybody to walk away with pertaining to either the overall theme of the Leadership Institute or specifically tying to what you presented on tonight, if you could really kind of just give us 30 seconds of some seed of wisdom, we would greatly appreciate it. Roslyn, we'll start with you.
Sure. And so I'm sharing the short course on leadership. And I just want to begin by saying there's no I in team. So just remember that as you're moving forward. But the 6 most important words: I admit I made a mistake. The 5 most important words: I am proud of you. The 4 most important words: what is your opinion? The 3 most important words: if you please. The 2 most important words: thank you. The 1 most important word: we. And the least important word: I. This is the short course on leadership, and I just think it's important that we just remember that it takes a team to work together. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, thank you. I think that summed it up right there. And Delores, the same to you.
Conflict will occur, but a war does not have to ensue. We can learn from experiences of conflict and gain great wisdom. Conflict can be a catalyst for us to be able to grow or make progress. Through this process, we discover our strengths and our weaknesses. We can choose to let conflict polish our character, or we can allow it to make us angry at life. We can be humble and thankful and learn from it to be critical and arrogant. The attitude you choose will directly affect you. And last but not least, say what is on your mind, speak in a way that is clear and assertive without being aggressive and manipulating. When you manipulate others, you may get your way, but the conflict is not resolved.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. We want to thank you all again. I don't even know what to say. I'm just thankful for all of the information that you presented, especially on the conflict piece that really tied into a lot of things that are going on in my life professionally right now. Returning back to, I was talking to you all about that. I returned back to in-person learning this week. So it's been a little bit of conflict going on, but I want to thank you all. I'm definitely going to utilize some of those tools and definitely both of your seeds of wisdom. Thank you again to our lovely presenters, Roslyn Cooley Prayer and Delores Alexander. If you all both are looking at the chat, there's a lot of shout outs going to you all right now. They're coming through.
You.
Just please make sure that you look through, just fish through that chat before we do go today. But we are not done yet. We are almost there. So I do want to let you all know that we have our amazing national president of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs coming on in a moment just to give us some closing words. Also, we have our lovely National First Vice President, Dr. Latanya V. Conley, coming on as well to close us out. But before we do officially close out, I want to give you all an opportunity to hear about some hot off the press information. Absolutely. When I say hot off the press, I mean hot off the press. So before we get there, I do want to have you all engage with me a few more moments. I just have a question for you all. So I'm going to ask you all to share your thoughts. Absolutely. So here's what I need everyone to do. You can do it in a chat or even in a Q&A. Presenters, you are free to join us as well. If you could think about topics that you would like delivered to you if you are a participant of an upcoming Leadership Institute. It could be something that we've discussed in these past 4 modules, but can you just, from a selfish point of view, can you share just a couple of thoughts, throw a couple of words, topics in the chat or the Q&A of topics that you might be interested in receiving information on to help further develop your leadership skills, or someone that you might know? If we could take just a quick, maybe 20 to 30 seconds and throw some proposed topics that you think might really help further develop you professionally or even personally as a leader. If you could throw those in the chat, I would appreciate that, or even in the Q&A. So we're going to close out with that. Just throw that right there in the chat or the Q&A. And also, we do want to make sure that we let you all know that there is something coming. I'm excited. Something coming very soon. Just keep your eyes on the screen. It's going to pop up in a second. Ooh, everybody's waiting. Ooh. All right. So right now we want to make sure that your opinion is shared. So throw those topics in the chat. However, let's see here. The Entrepreneurs Institute is coming. Woo! We're excited. All right. So this is really hot off the press. Like nothing has gone out. Nothing. Oh my goodness. All right. So you all are getting this. Just a heads up. It's going to kick off on March 17th with 3 sessions. And they're going to be presented by the Urban League of Greater Atlanta, as well as the Small Business Administration. The theme is Lipstick Chat, getting down to business. Absolutely. So if you are an aspiring or existing business owner, this is for you. And we're going to have some guest presenters. Nancy Flake Johnson is actually the president of the Urban League of the Greater Atlanta area. And we also will have Terry Dennison joining on behalf of the SBA. So that is hot off the press. I'm so excited. So just wanted to share that with you all. So get ready, get ready, get ready. And these sessions are going to only be 1-hour sessions. Okay, so 1-hour session. So it's definitely going to be a bang for your buck. Okay, you're going to get in and out 1 hour of some dynamic information for those of you who are, again, are aspiring or existing business owners. So that is the little tidbit I wanted to share with you all. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to, we're going to bring on our national president. She is joining us in a second. And we're going to close out. And definitely, if you have questions for our presenters, you can still throw them in the chat or the Q&A. They are still working and answering questions. All right. So, National President Carper, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh my God. This, I have to give it to my partner, right hand and left hand, Dr. Conley. She outdone herself. These 4 training sessions and modules that we have had for the last 4 modules that started on January 14th with Miss Pia Scott with the Resilient Women Black Panther style. Then we went on to the national president, not just the local or the district president, but we have the national president, Darlene Allen, to learn parliamentary procedures. Oh, what a wonderful workshop that was. And then we had our very own, my club member, club sister, Dr. Deborah Jackson, who talked to us about transformational leadership, where she just outdid herself as well. But tonight, I can't say enough about my sisters in my district, the Mid-Atlantic District. They just outdid themselves tonight. It was excellent. And so ladies, members and non-members, because we do have guests even thinking and talking about these webinars and talking about our association and talking about joining our association because of these leadership workshops that they have gone through for the last 4 sessions. It is amazing. We are blessed. I am so grateful. I'm grateful to be the president of this marvelous organizations. And ladies, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you for enough for the support. And then Cheryl McKay, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about you. You have been outstanding. And we could not have done this. We know it. We could not have done this without you. So my hat's off to you for your leadership, for your sisterhood. I am thoroughly grateful for all that you do to move our organization forward. So on behalf of our Leadership Institute, all of our presenters, and thank you so much for what you're doing to have NANBPW to reach new heights. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Thank you, ladies. God bless you.
All right, and before we bring on our National First Vice President to close us out, I just want to let everyone know that tonight's presentation will be shared with you within 48 hours. We will share the presentation slides as well as the recording. So please be on the lookout for that. I know there were a lot of questions about that, so just want to let you all know. And we are coming to the end, and it's so fitting to have our National First Vice President, Dr. LaTanya Conley, to close us out. Dr. Conley, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Madam Program Assistant, Sister Cheryl, for being with us on this evening. And to my sisters, Delores and to Sister Roslyn, I too want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. As President said, we have worked tirelessly together for the past few months trying to put this together. We were really starting to do it last year, but because of other things pressing, we were unable to do it when we started out in January. But God is good all the time. And so we're just thankful that He has allowed us to come to this point to be able to have the second of the 3 leadership institutes. We've had our technology, we're now doing the leadership. And thankfully, during this administration, we're able to also present the Entrepreneurs Institute as well. To the more than 100 individuals that took the time to participate in these institutes, I want to say I thank you. I'm humbled by your support and your participation. Again, we could not have done it without you. I do trust that what we have been able to share with you through all of our presenters has been beneficial. And it's not just for you. I ask that you go back and share this information with your clubs. If you need a program, you've had many programs presented to you over the past few months. So these are opportunities to share with your club sisters or other people that you may know who did not sign up. Again, we thank you for your time. Thank you for your investment, both personally and professionally. And as the president says, we're moving to new heights. I'm just thankful that we're moving together. So again, thank you so much for joining us on tonight. For those who are business owners or aspiring, please consider the abbreviated Entrepreneurs Institute that's going to start on March the 17th. And again, it's only going to be $30 if you sign up in advance or $40 if you wait. But again, that's something that we wanted to offer, again, a discount on the services that we're trying to provide through the Urban League as well as the SBA. And again, thank you so much.
Again, to everybody, thank you, thank you, thank you. We want to make sure that you not only view those wonderful, recordings of all of the information we've had from modules 1 to even tonight. Share that information. It's definitely valuable and it's priceless. Honestly, it is priceless. So I guess we're signing out. Thank you all for the opportunity. And again, have a wonderful evening and we'll see you soon, hopefully for the Entrepreneurs Institute. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And again, shout out to our Mid-Atlantic district with so much representation this evening. And of course, our Mid-Atlantic Governor, Joan McIver, who is with us. She was also a participant in the Leadership Institute. So you all have a wonderful evening and enjoy sharing that wonderful 2020 Leadership Institute information and putting it to work. Have a wonderful evening.
Good evening.